We've been talking about the journey that has taken us to today, where Agile, Waterfall, and now AI all get to intervene, to get to work together. As part of that journey, I've described to you how context, mindfulness, respect, and trust are really key important elements to help us establish the foundation upon which we can establish our Agile culture and use that to help us develop an ethical positive AI environment. So today we get to put it all together. We get to look at those pillars: context, mindfulness, and respect, and then see how they relate to trust. And then we get to see how these pillars are parallel to what AI needs in order to create an ethical AI implementation. So context, mindfulness, and respect form our foundation, the troika, that creates the stable base necessary for trust to develop and thrive in both human and human AI interactions. Trust, in turn, becomes a central pillar supporting everything we value in both agile and ethical AI implementations. So let's take a look at how it all comes together and what is necessary in order to be successful and why it's important to have these elements in place. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Agile for AI. I'm Sean. I'm passionate about Agile and AI, and I'm here to share with you the experience that I've built over 20 years working in these spaces. Because I want for you to be successful, and I want to share my experiences in whatever way may be helpful to you in your journey. I look forward to hearing your comments, and I invite you to join us so that we can have a chat, discussion, and learn from each other. So, with that, let's jump right in. As I mentioned in the intro, we've been talking about context, mindfulness, and respect. And I want to set those three aside for a moment because they are key elements that help us establish a foundation for trust. And when we're creating foundations, we're creating structures. What we're looking for is having stability, having something that we can build something on top of that foundation, on top of that structure. So there's this concept of structural integrity, engineering, all of these metaphors help us to establish the importance of these elements as we're building something on top of them. We use the concept of troika. We haven't heard about them. Troika refers to having three, as a group of three. And three is important because this is the minimum number of support elements necessary to create a stable structure. Think of a chair. Okay. We could create a chair out of a single tool. Yes, actually, you can buy those on Amazon or other places. And while they do work, they're not stable. I wouldn't try to stand on one of those, we would fall. Same thing for a structure that has only two legs. You can't stand on them, you will fall. But the moment that you have three, this is the first moment that you can stand on them. There is something stable under your feet to keep you up. This is why 3 points are really important, to create something that we can depend on. And that's exactly the concept to think about when we talk about concept, mindfulness, and respect. They're creating this stable base. They are our troika. For what purpose? The purpose is to then build on top of that pillar of trust. And these four form the four pillars of Agile. I'm not sure that many coaches refer to it as the four pillars of Agile. I'd be happy to hear in the comments if you've heard it before. But when you think about it, a lot of coaches and a lot of people in the Agile space do talk about these elements separately, sell them together as a grouping. And the relationship between these elements is, I don't hear talked about very often. Yet they are very, very, very important to work together because they have a synergistic relationship with each other that augments what each one of them brings to the table. When we're looking at trust as a fundamental and essential element necessary to implement an agile transformation and now an AI transformation, It's not good enough to come into companies and say, "Oh, just trust me. We'll get through it." It's not even good enough for companies to tell their employees, "Oh, just trust us. We're just going to implement this thing. It's good for all of us." Trust is essential, and trust doesn't come for free. We have to do something. We have to plant the seeds to create the causes and conditions for that trust to develop. This is where context, mindfulness, and respect are important. If we observe this, if we follow these, if we behave in alignment with establishing good context in our communications, and being mindful as we're interacting with others, and being respectful, creating a respectful environment, whether it's with humans or with AIs, this gives reason for us to trust. Now that we have that trust established, then we can build all of the stuff that Agile and AI have to deliver, and we can benefit from them as we're building it on a trusting relationship. Without that, it's very difficult to do. I mentioned about how, previously I mentioned how we can always change the way that we look at things, the way that we think, the programming of our brains. We can do that. We can change that. However, it takes, first of all, awareness that we're doing something. So that mindfulness element is really important. Second, it takes a commitment, a desire to change the way that we're currently doing things. It's not enough to be aware that we're changing something if we don't want to change it. So we have to be aware and want to change it. And then we have to rinse and repeat. It's about practicing, it's about repeatedly doing things in this new way that helps us create that new way as our norm. This takes time, it takes a lot of effort, and it is possible to do. And the good news is that once we have done it, we establish this new pattern of doing things, this new way of doing things. It's going to take a lot of effort on our part. If we're going to ask people to do that, there has to be a reason for it. They can't just out of nowhere. People can't just out of nowhere just say, "Oh, just change the way that you're doing things," and just do it. There isn't trust in that. There's a lot of hesitation. Agile transformations over the past 20 years, we've observed it, have encountered a lot of resistance. And a lot of resistance comes from lack of trust. Try to think of it from this perspective. Whether good or bad, the way that you've been doing things up until today, if you haven't engaged in an agile transformation, you're still alive, you're still employed, you're still here. Why would you change that? That's risky. What if it goes badly? What happens to my job? So we need to create the conditions for people to trust that engaging in this transformation effort will lead to good results, will lead to something good. We will be treated fairly. We will be considered along the way. Same thing happens with AI integrations. As we integrate AI into the workplace, people are going to have a lot of hesitation, a lot of confusion, a lot of doubt. To just tell people, "Oh, just trust it. This is good stuff. It's always very exciting. Let's just do it." Without creating that trust foundation, there's going to be a lot of resistance, rightfully so. So to overcome that, to have that trusting relationship, to overcome the resistance and to be able to move forward, we need to create that trust. And that comes from establishing proper context, being mindful in our communications, and being respectful. With those elements, we can move forward with that trust relationship and build upon it. So when we talked about context, we talked about it in setting clear communications with our human teams, for example. And it doesn't just help us in having clear communications with our human teams. Having establishing good context helps us in our communications with AIs. If you've done any work with AI, you understand that creating a prompt can be challenging. AIs will make a lot of assumptions many times. And if we're not careful in constructing the prompts in the way that convey the message that we're looking for, we won't get the results that we're looking for. For a while, there was this concept of prompt engineering, which the AIs are getting better and better at, needing less of that. But still, it's so important if we establish a good context in our communication, our requests to the AI systems, that will give us better results. The better the context, the better the result. And whether it's with humans or with AIs, This concept of working on context, establishing good context, creates that shared understanding that we're whatever it is that we're doing is for the same purpose. We're not operating on different goals, on different purposes. If you're working with an AI, sometimes what I do is I define my desired outcome. Front, I say, this is my desired outcome. Of everything I'm going to talk about, this is what I want to see the outcome be. And that helps establish the context of what I'm requesting so that the AI can check back on the heading that we're taking into the conversation and whether or not it meets the desired objective. We've done the same thing in Agile. We've learned that when we are clear about establishing a shared context through those desired objectives, desired outcomes, and then as we're exploring the possibilities, as we're working through the challenges, through the work that needs to be done, we have a way to check back and say, are we on track towards delivering that desired outcome? So the context is so important. We can trust that what we're doing is heading us in the right direction. Context is key. The mindfulness is having that awareness in our human and AI interactions. It's in the context of AI, perhaps because there aren't feelings to be hurt, at least not yet, with AIs. Um, it's about making sure that we use the AIs with a good purpose, with a good intention, that we do it in an ethical way, not just in our direct interaction with them, but from a company's perspective, for example, is making sure that we are mindful in how we're using AI and their impact on our human task force. So making a conscious choice, making conscious choices as we're deploying AI technologies is very key to make sure that we don't lose that human element, that we keep the human component in the work that we're doing, whether we're working with humans or we're working with AIs, and to prevent the introduction of AIs from creating an environment where we undermine the human element. And at that moment, we create an environment that is toxic. Or if we already have one, we augment the toxicity that already exists in our environment. And that leads to very disrespectful interactions, that leads to breaking psychological safety. So now we're talking about that third pillar of respect. We're establishing the psychological safety in human teams. It's so important for them to be courageous, for them to explore, for people to feel safe in exploring different possibilities, different implementations, different solutions, to speak up about them without fear and having their thoughts considered, and then maybe implemented, maybe not, but at least knowing that they will be heard and considered as they're thinking things through. That respect needs to carry into our ethical implementation of AI. There are many things that we can do that will break that respectful relationship, not just between employee peers, but also between managers and their team members. It's very easy for managers to use the AI technologies in ways that really undermine the individual, really create a very hostile environment, work environment, where people feel that they are constantly under a microscope. Quite literally, the AI system becomes that microscope if we are not respectful in our implementation of AIs. So maintaining human dignity in AI-enabled workplaces is going to be really, really critical to make sure that we benefit from the implementation, and then also we don't meet resistance in the implementation of AI in the workplace, which is very understandable. And once we do these two things, once we've established that, now we're in a good position to implement whatever it is, whether it's the agile transformation, whether it's an AI transformation. These are things that fundamentally change the way that we've been working. And as we're changing, now we've established a trust relationship whereby we feel comfortable trying these things. We feel comfortable exploring, and we feel comfortable making mistakes along the way. We will make mistakes, and it's safe to do so. We've established that psychological safety, and we're able to do it. If all we have, as I alluded to it earlier, is just that, oh, just trust us, and we do it, and we haven't paid attention to the other three pillars, and we do something that breaks that trust, Now the entire transformation, Agile or AI, whatever it is that we're doing, is a threat. It creates risk. I was mindful of my choice of the graphic, representing. I have put the fourth pillar along with the others, but I really felt that this trust pillar needs to stand separately. And what I'm connoting with this image is that, first of all, we need to establish that base to then build a trust. And once we've done that, we need to be careful with that trust because it is fragile. There are many things that we can do that will break that trust when we behave unethically, immorally, when we break any of the three underlying pillars. We are undermining that trust and we're putting at risk the entire effort. And once we've done that, once we've broken that trust, it's very difficult to reestablish it. It's very difficult to repair it. So, as companies, as employers, we need to be really careful about this. And as we're making decisions, we need to evaluate the cost benefit of following a particular path. Because if it breaks any of these pillars, everything that we're putting together could be at risk. So, trust is important, whether we're doing AI or Agile. It fits into the trajectory, the journey that we need to follow in order to be successful in implementing these. When we have that trust, we can talk about transparency. Transparency is a very powerful concept that Agile introduced. At first, it feels very vulnerable. It feels very risky. We're putting everything that we're doing out there for anybody to look at, from the CEO of the company to our peers. Everybody has direct access, direct view at what we're doing. That's feel kind of naked when we're behaving that way. And if it's just for the purpose of somebody criticizing us, admonishing us, correcting us, that doesn't work. That will kill transparency. People don't want to put themselves in that position. And it's not about them not being honest and not being open. It's just simply, it feels awful when you are put in a fishbowl and you're criticized left and right. That's not the purpose of transparency. The purpose of transparency is allowing others to offer their perspective, their point of view, as they're looking at what we're doing, because their perspective could be helpful to whatever it is that we're working on. Example, when companies, pharmaceuticals, for example, they do this very often. They will open their labs for people, anybody, to come in and take a look at what's going on in the labs. And part of the reason why they do that is because somebody coming in and taking a look at the work that's been done in the labs, they don't have the knowledge, they don't have the expertise, and they don't have the habituation to the work that's being done. So they ask questions. Well, the questions may be very naive and they may be very young. And other questions are really, really, really intuitive. They're really sharp. They make people who are immune to whatever's happening take a look, second look and go like, you know what? We never thought about that. Yeah, we didn't think about that because that's just the way that we do things every day. When we invite people who are not directly involved in the work that we're doing on a day-to-day basis to offer their perspective or opinion, we stand to learn something, and to the opportunity to see things from a different lens. And that can sometimes be very helpful. Other times maybe not, but that's okay. It's for those times that it helps us. It is really valuable. When we have trust relationships, we're willing to put ourselves in the position to benefit that way. If we don't, we can never do that. This trust will help us build good human and human AI collaboration. If we haven't established that trust, it's very easy for the human worker to look at that AI peer with distrust. Like, what are you going to say about me? What information are you going to leak out? How are you going to be working relative to my job? Yeah, that kind of distrust is going to create walls in our relationship and our interactions. We're going to break down those walls that can only come from trust. High innovation comes when we are trusting, when we are willing to put ourselves out there and try something different, something that nobody has tried before. It may fail, And that's okay. We learn from that failure. That's what the agile culture has taught us. But it's okay to fail because it is a learning opportunity. It is an opportunity to learn the things that we should never do again, or it's an opportunity to learn something that will be helpful. Adaptation, being able to open our minds to considering different ways of doing things, not being stuck with the way that we've always done things before. That's a really powerful thing. That's what allows us to grow. And that's what Agile taught us. If we're always adapting to the current situations, we have an opportunity to grow as individuals, as teams, as companies. So that adaptation is really, really, really important. We're not going to try if we don't trust the process, if we don't trust the journey. So these are really, really important benefits that we get out of establishing that trusting relationship, which only comes from nurturing the other pillars. So when we're looking at the journey ahead, whether it's agile or AI implementations, when we establish good context, we will avoid costly misunderstandings. We will have clear purpose and boundaries for whatever it is that we're implementing. And we will understand the AI capabilities and agile capabilities better and their limitations, and we won't inappropriately try to use them in ways that they're not intended to be used. This is a benefit of having proper context as we're implementing these things, as we're evaluating how to implement them. When we're mindful in our agile and AI deployment, we can use AI for empowerment, not control of people. We avoid the micromanagement, creating that micromanagement and stereo scenario. And we balance efficiency with human value, what humans stand to offer. That mindfulness creates the proper working environment and conditions where all of this is possible, without which we could create a very oppressive environment for the sake of efficiency. Yes, it's immensely efficient to bring in an AI engine that is micromanaging every single aspect of operations. No question. However, we will lose the human value in the process because no human will be willing to work under those conditions and give their best. They will give what is necessary for the AI not to attack them. And when we're looking at respect in context of implementing an AI and an agile transformation, we need to remember about the impact on the human workplace, and preserving that dignity, how AI interaction habits affect human relationships. It will be very easy for us to forget how to interact with people if we create an environment that treats AIs in a very transactional, programmatic way. We will then start treating humans in an equally transactional, programmatic way. So we've got to be really careful about maintaining that respect and creating possible positive feedback loops where we're always improving and making better, more respectful relationships that will lead to better results for all of us. So, in looking at these four pillars of Agile, I share with you that many times I have seen Agile transformations that have gone very poorly. And if you're right now starting an agile transformation or you've been in an agile transformation and you've never heard anybody talking about these elements, setting proper context in our communications, being mindful and respectful to create that trust upon which we're building things. If you've never heard that, if that isn't something that your company and you are constantly thinking about, it's always in the back of your head, that's a red flag that will contribute to challenges in the implementation of agile and AI transformations. And it will create impediments, it will create obstacles for a good implementation. So I recommend that you take a good look at how your company and you contributing to establishing these four pillars, nurturing them, making sure that they're always in good shape. Just like a building is like always check it, see if there are any cracks, and do something about it. Because the stronger this foundation is, the more confidence you have that what you're building on top of it will be good. It will give you the results that you're looking for. It will be for good benefit for everybody. And in this way, we are honoring the first in the Agile Manifesto, the first value in the Agile Manifesto, that of individuals and interactions over processes and tools. It is not just about bringing in whatever agile methodologies or AI tools into the workplace. It's about preserving the individuals and the interactions, and then putting those processes and tools in place to help those individuals and interactions. When that is the priority, we get the best results. So it's worthwhile. It's worth our effort. It's worth our investment to do that. There's a parallel when we look at this agile values and what's needed to implement an ethical AI environment, workplace. There are a lot of parallels, and this is why agile can really feed into an AI transformation and help boost it, help support it. So with that, um, we're starting to enter into the space of the Agile Manifesto and the values. We're talking about those further. For now, I encourage you to think about today, think about how it relates to your workplace, to the work that you're doing, to how you're contributing, and see if there's something that you can do to help establish a good foundation, making sure that those four pillars are nice and strong for you to benefit. With that, thank you for today. If I've earned it, please hit that like button and subscribe. I look forward to the next time. And I look forward to seeing you in the comments.